Treason at the highest level. That's what Trump's calling the Biden cover-up. And he says the people who lied to the country are treasonous thugs and wants their punishment to be very severe. Now everybody in D.C. is trying to prove they're not Benedict Arnold. After hiding the evidence, now they're saying there was no evidence.
It was harder to get people to say anything.
That's the point.
And it's hard to get, I mean, you need evidence for stories.
Yeah,
but we were trying
yes.
to crack this.
Yeah, people outside of the Beltway saw evidence every day, and they didn't need sources to know Biden's brain was shot. They just needed a TV. The Washington Post, a paper that has hundreds of reporters in the Capitol, who has reporters following Biden around on his plane, are now saying, quote, if Biden was too frail for his job, voters should have been informed. Yeah, by you. The paper that broke Watergate couldn't tell us Biden was a vegetable. Informing the public is literally their job. And they're saying they couldn't do it because they were tricked.
We get phone calls at home where the guy is like pounding me because of op-eds that I wrote, et cetera, et cetera. So,
you know, though.
So I said that this was Biden at his best.
Sure.
That's what I saw.
I don't
That's
doubt.
what other people saw. I was obviously wrong. So I'm not sure what my takeaway is here.
Scarborough says he was wrong, but he's not sure what the takeaway is. Journalists who act like they're smarter than anybody, and they're saying they got duped by Binder? Binder? They're saying, yeah, we really did think Biden was running circles around her. All of the people pretending they got duped got book deals. Well, what about the people who didn't get duped, like me? What do I get? I don't want anything. I don't need anything. I just need you to watch. And you do, because I'm right. As Limbaugh said, 99.8% of the time. Even the Biden campaign couldn't believe how dumb D.C. was. They were shocked that reporters believed the lies they told them.
When you were reporting this, did people in his inner circle, did those that you talked to, acknowledge that the media, were they surprised by how complicit the media was?
It was interesting. I had one conversation with someone. This was after the election while we were reporting this book. This person said, listen, yes, we deserve blame for X, Y, Z. We were hiding him. This person also sort of got in my face and they said, listen, the media deserves some blame too. Like, we were sort of amazed at some of the stuff we were able to spin. You guys should not have believed us so easily.
The Biden White House was like, yeah, we were lying, but you idiots shouldn't have believed us. We told you Joe was Hercules. The campaign didn't even think it'd be close. They thought they could throw Trump in jail and keep Biden in the bunker.
They will say that the threat of Donald Trump made it so he didn't really have a choice. That being said, just given what we've seen of their actions and how they acted after the debate, I think he would have run anyway. I mean, I think...
he spent most of 2023, him and Donilon, President Biden and Mike Donilon spent most of 2023 convinced that Donald Trump was going to jail.
But throwing Trump in jail just made him more popular. So NyQuil Joe was forced out of hiding, and his campaign spent millions staging fake town halls.
This fake town hall was in order to film it so they could make it into campaign commercials. They filmed it in Delaware with supporters. But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. So they took 90 minutes, 2 hours out of the president's day. They filmed an entire town hall, and they determined that it was not usable. Now, some people say this was because Joe Biden was incoherent. He could not really articulate his thoughts in a pithy or even semi-normal way.
Everybody knew how bad things really were. Some Democrats were worried about Biden years before. During a trip to Ireland, one Democrat said Joe reminded him of his father right before he died. Another Democrat said they were stunned to see Biden completely out of it at a White House Christmas party. Every Democrat saw it, but they all zipped their lips. Even Kamala thought Joe was out of his mind. Remember when Joe put on the Trump hat? She said, what is he doing? This is completely unhelpful and so unnecessary. After that, they said, we're not campaigning with this guy ever again. Biden was toxic. Now Democrats are saying Biden's foreign policy wasn't really his.
I look at the policy that we were able to pass, what we were able to do in the foreign policy space, reestablishing alliances. We were doing a lot. Now, was that Joe Biden or was that the people around Joe Biden?
Politburo? Yeah.
No, I don't think that was a Politburo, but I think he had really strong folks around him. Now, yes, we can go back in hindsight and say maybe it wasn't the president that was doing this, and maybe we should have asked questions.
Biden wasn't even running his own White House. They say a small group of Biden insiders were running it. You know who was in charge? Hunter.
Well, I think Hunter was driving the decision making for the family in a way that he was almost like a chief of staff. I think he is provably, demonstrably unethical, sleazy, and prone to horrible decisions. I mean,
tell me how you really feel.
Well, I mean, just look at the record. I mean, after his brother died, he cheated on his wife with his brother's widow and then got her addicted to crack.
Tapper just said a sleazy criminal hooked on crack was running the country. But when we said that, Tapper said, no, that's just a cruel conspiracy.
The right wing is going crazy with all sorts of allegations about Biden and his family, too disgusting to even repeat here. I mean, some of the ones I've seen from the president's son and some of the president's supporters are just wildly unhinged.
Unhinged. Okay. Well, what's Tapper's next book going to be called? Biden's border crisis? How Democrats imported millions of voters. How much is he going to get paid for that? Because when conservatives write a book, they're not even allowed on most mainstream shows to promote it. Tapper is everywhere. So the question is why? Well, the media is trying to scapegoat the Biden family while they clean up the rest of the crime scene. They knew all along they were in the middle of a cover-up and didn't say a thing. But when did Biden find out he had cancer? They said he found out Friday. But at this point, we can't believe anything they say. Biden said he had cancer 3 years ago.
Because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
Was he talking about prostate cancer, skin cancer? Because he said this before they caught his skin cancer. So what cancer was he talking about? Was that a gaffe? Was he telling the truth? How long have they been lying to us? Biden had an enlarged prostate over 10 years ago, and they just stopped testing him? Doesn't make any sense. The question now is, why haven't we heard from Biden's doctor? Why are unnamed Biden sources telling us about Biden's cancer? Shouldn't doctors be making these statements, not anonymous sources out of Delaware? No one wants to put their names to this story. Maybe because there's more to this story.
I mean, I still feel that Jake I think agrees that this is only the first draft of this story and it's going to continue on.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.